Welcome to Roadie Wellness, where we explore all things health and self-care. Whether you're seeking mental clarity, physical fitness, or insight from students like you, we've got you covered. Hello and welcome back to the Roadie Wellness Podcast. I'm Olivia and I'm here today with...
I'm Kelli Kidd. I'm the URI Nutrition Specialist and Sports Nutrition Specialist.
Thank you for joining us today. So we are going to be talking about nutrition habits and maintaining a sustainable and healthy diet, specifically for active students or gym rats, as they are called on TikTok and social media a lot. So to start us off, what is the difference between nutrition habits for like an average student versus a more active student, whether that be an athlete or just someone who's in the gym a lot?
So the difference generally boils down to activity need requirements and the requirements for their specific activity, which typically come in the two forms of making sure that there's enough fuel or carbohydrate available to support their needs, and then that the protein is appropriate to support their lean body mass goals.
And that goes into like muscle building, right?
If that is a goal that a student or a student athlete comes in with, then yes, we incorporate that in.
And then when you meet with students, specifically athletes, I know you do a lot of consultations with them. What is the first step that you usually take?
The way that I like to start our nutrition sessions is to find out what their goals are or what they would like to achieve by us putting together a nutrition plan or a sports performance plan.
Okay, and then what does that kind of look like?
So oftentimes that actually pauses the individual, and sometimes they have to think about it. Sometimes they'll come in with like a weight loss or a weight gain goal, in which case I will press them a little bit to get to the goal that they have with that. So if an athlete comes in with a weight gain goal, I will ask them how would they like that to impact performance. So, for example, like a football player generally would like to have more power and explosivity so they can be more effective on the field. So what we try to do with that is tie in what their weight gain goal is with that performance piece, because all of our bodies are a little bit different and we have, kind of a weight range that our body will allow us to perform at. And as we're in the quest of that, we want to make sure that we are actually achieving what that goal outcome is.
And then for someone who may have a goal that's more aesthetic based rather than like performance based, what is there like a difference with how you do that consultation?
Absolutely. So if somebody comes in with, let's just say it's like a weight loss or a body fat loss goal, I will generally ask them, if it's a specific weight goal, how that fits into what their personal weight history has been. If it's far different than the weight history that they've been, we have a conversation about that they might have to be flexible with what that endpoint is. And then I also press them for what would you like to accomplish with that. In some cases, there might be some labs that, like a blood pressure or a cholesterol level or a blood sugar that wasn't where they wanted it to be. In some cases, they haven't really thought about it. They just think like, if I lose, and we tend to think in like 10 or 5 pound increments, if I lose 20 pounds, everything will be better. So then we have a conversation about that. Just because you achieve a certain weight doesn't necessarily guarantee that everything in life is going to be better. So we try to define what specific areas they would like life to be changed in. So things like having more energy, being able to think or understand in class a little more effectively, feeling more powerful, or if they do have, like a basic workout plan that they're just feeling better and better recovered as a result of it, that we're keeping their immune system stronger. So we try to tie it into a few other factors other than just the number on the scale.
Yeah, I love that you take a more holistic approach to it, because ultimately a physical goal might not be the actual goal of what they really want to achieve. So that's a really great place to start. Shifting a little bit from that topic, you hear a lot about the word like macros in the gym community. So what really does that mean? And is there actually like a benefit to keeping track of your macros?
So with so many things, I'm going to say it depends. So when a student comes in the background, I am calculating estimated needs for calories and what we call the macronutrients. The 3 key macronutrients are carbohydrate, protein, and dietary fat. So there is a calculation that fits in with that total calorie amount. the student knowing that and then counting that, if it's supporting them eating in a way that is helping their health goals and for them to feel better and accomplish what they're aiming for, then we can use it. In many cases, it becomes almost like a stressor where they're trying to achieve this very specific number, but the way that they're putting it together isn't comprised of necessarily a good variety of nutrient-dense foods.
And then following up kind of on that, I also hear a lot about cutting and bulking in the gym community, or intermittent fasting, which can be a popular choice to achieve their goals. Can you talk about this a little bit more, maybe which one's more helpful?
So I think the bulking and cutting is very specific to a form of competition like bodybuilding. So in that community, with the right coaching and the right guidance and the right what we call periodized or strategic plan for the year, it can very much fit into their competition schedule. I think what gets lost in translation, especially in social media, is the years of work of very dedicated strength training that goes along with those diet adjustments that need to take place. So I think people see somebody that might be competing and they hear this cutting, bulking idea, and they think that this is something that they're going to accomplish in 6 or 8 weeks, where it might be 1, 2, 3 years that an individual needs to spend doing that.
And like you said, it is very popular within the bodybuilding community, and I think it can be popular in the gym rat almost community too, because they use it as a way to achieve aesthetic goals, whether it's more muscle mass or gaining or losing weight in certain ways. And so it's definitely interesting because social media does depict it as a quick, you can achieve, your dream body in a year if you stick to this extremely strict diet, and that's not always helpful. Kind of going off of that too, if someone wants to establish a long-term sustainable plan using this, can they go and consult with you for something like that, or where can they get more in-depth information that's accurate as well?
So certainly from the nutrition perspective, I can help support whatever their health or performance goals are. I would say if they were aiming to compete, seeking the guidance of somebody with expertise in that field would be very beneficial, especially as they're trying to establish those programs. So we do have on campus, through Campus Rec, some certified personal trainers that are accessible. I would say, having that baseline foundational information from somebody that's, credentialed in their field, whether that's through the lifting aspect and then collaborating with a nutrition perspective, that I can certainly help with.
Yeah, thank you. And intermittent fasting, that's also a popular one. What is your rating of this?
So I would say out of the thousands of people that I've counseled, it has been rare that somebody has been able to use that effectively to maintain the body composition. It is definitely possible, and it depends on, a lot of different factors, but it is a way to keep calories decreased. I think where it goes askew is similar to the scenario where I've previously described, where people go too long or they get themselves to an extreme hunger situation, and then that has kind of this backlash or secondary effect of leading to a situation where they end up eating much more. Generally, what I will see when somebody might not have the best structure for their intermittent fasting plan is that they will be able to do it for a short amount of time, maybe a week or two, and then they get to the point where they have, what they will term a cheat day, or a day where it's just exceptionally extreme with the amount that they're consuming. They don't have the long-term results that they're hoping for. And with intermittent fasting, I think there is a lot of research that is being conducted. I think that the way that males versus females respond is notable, and I think that is important to highlight. The research that's being done on females shows that typically beyond about 12 hours of fasting, it becomes not a positive situation, because then it ends up kind of having the opposite effect where the body perceives it as an emergency situation and starts to put into place compensatory methods to hold on to calories. So if a female is looking to have an intermittent fasting time, I will generally try to have them stick with eating primarily in the daylight hours and just tapping into our own circadian rhythms and not eating in those nighttime periods when we are not designed to metabolize and utilize food in the same way. For males, they can go a longer amount of time, but that also makes sense when you look at things like nutrition anthropology and the evolutionary biologists. When they're looking back at what we did 300,000 years ago, we're designed much differently, and males can adapt to more extremes in calorie restriction with less negative effect.
It seems like it's a lot more effective for males than females. And yeah, I have heard that in different classes and things where certain diets can slow your metabolism and almost have the opposite effect as desired and can have your body hold on to calories rather than burn it easily. So definitely something that more people should know. So I'm glad that you brought it up. And if someone has a fitness goal, would you say that having I don't want to say complicated, but like cutting and bulking and intermittent fasting, they're more like, are they complicated diets? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
So what I try to have us do with like nutrition education or the approach to eating is almost like we're building on. So we start with a foundation of just really understanding and being able to implement those basic components of having that balanced, consistent eating pattern. And if they're able to do that for some amount of time, then maybe we will go up to the next advanced step, which might be more periodizing or matching their eating pattern to what their competition or their physical activity needs are at different points in the year. And then as they master those skills, we will move up that pyramid, if you will. And same thing for cutting and bulking. I think that that would be an advanced skill that I would feel most comfortable if somebody had a coach to also monitor what is happening performance-wise.
In regards to these building blocks that you're saying, what would be the basic level that you could recommend to students who want to start observing and changing their nutrition habits and maybe start like a sustainable diet? Where's the level that you would start them out on?
So basically us sitting down and just putting together an overall eating plan that has those, generally we're aiming for like 3 balanced meals, and depending on our activity level, anywhere between 1 to 3 additional, I call it nourishments, to make sure that they're including that little bit of protein in. So we kind of start with the foundation, aiming for that place that they feel best body composition wise, and then we go forward from there depending on what their, like if they have a performance goal, looks like.
Okay, great, thank you. And then is there any other nutrition myths or even gym culture myths that you would like to bring up and kind of dispel?
What I think is important is that, people they know their why, they know what their goal is and why they have it, and that can help them to navigate sometimes through some misinformation. I think in a gym setting, you will often get individuals who have a little bit of nutrition knowledge, but not enough to know the potential second and third order effects, like as you mentioned, prolonged and problematic episodes of low energy availability can have detrimental consequences, both health and performance, increasing risk of injury and illness. So if somebody is not aware of what that looks like or what to look out for, they may end up with a serious injury, and then they can't even do the activity that was like a stress reliever or some type of positive activity. So I think that that's an area that they need to just be conscious of when they're in a place where somebody like a personal trainer should be sticking to the exercise guidance versus jumping into an area that they aren't credentialed or licensed for.
Yeah, and what would be some symptoms that people could look out for of these detrimental negative impacts?
Absolutely. So I would say some of the common things that come in that people don't realize are potentially nutrition related. Certainly that lack of energy or where they're just having a very hard time recovering. Frequent illnesses or injuries, bone injuries like stress fractures, stress reactions. From like a female's point of view, like missed or absent menstrual cycles for men, the hormonal changes would be, I say that if they're thinking more about food and less about like a love interest, sometimes that's an indication that they are under fueling, or where they're just individuals are constantly thinking about food, like more than 50% of the day. Sometimes that is an indication. GI or gastrointestinal challenges. So I'll have a lot of people come in saying, oh, I'm so bloated. My stomach just like, I feel like I'm not digesting the food. And sometimes that is due to not having enough calories going in, or it's inconsistent. And that's having that second order effect on their digestive process.
Some of those I wouldn't have even guessed. So, like, I'm glad that you're speaking about this. In our previous conversation, when we were discussing this podcast, you talked about weight and specifically the number on the scale. I don't know if you want to go into that some.
Oh, absolutely. So again, like I really try to have people put what their goal is and their hope is into context. So sometimes people get very focused on a specific number that they want to weigh, even as I was mentioning before, maybe they never weighed that. And they will be on the scale every day or multiple times a day. And then that number makes or breaks their day. So what I remind them is the information that number on the scale does and doesn't provide. So it is a metric. It's similar to information we might get from like a blood pressure reading, or it's one entity. It doesn't in itself decide health. So when somebody steps on the scale, that number tells me nothing about their bone density. It tells me nothing about their body composition, like how much muscle they have. It doesn't tell me that one number does not tell me their fluid status. There's something called glycogen, which is stored muscle fuel, which for athletes would be something that they would need to utilize in long events or a situation where there's a lot of start and stop. With being on a scale, I have no idea what their glycogen levels are. Getting on the scale in the morning compared to the evening can be a several pound weight difference from nothing else other than undigested food, or our fluid status looks a little bit different. So I think there's a lot of things to keep in mind. That weight generally does fluctuate a few pounds throughout the week, and that doesn't necessarily reflect just body composition.
I'm glad that you mentioned those things about the weight on a scale and things like that, because I think some people can get in their heads about it, and it's not a reflection of their overall activity level and health and body status, like you mentioned. I think that goes into a common thing with people who are heavily into the gym community, which is like body dysmorphia. So I just want to talk a little bit about how someone could evaluate their exercise plan and see if it's something that's helping their overall health, and if it's something that's sustainable, or if it's something that's almost compulsory and leading down a path of disordered eating, or just like problematic and not a sustainable way to support healthy living.
Absolutely. I think that is such a great point to help listeners to tease out those areas. So when I meet with somebody, we will go through some additional questions just so we can potentially strategize. And one of the questions that I will ask about is things like purging to get rid of undesired calories. And I will bring up, do you think exercise is a purge? Like, do you do it just to get rid of calories? Many times people have never thought of that. The other thing that they would potentially look out for if it's gone down a path of being less healthy would be if they were working out even though they were injured or sick and felt like they absolutely could not miss a day, and it was negatively impacting their quality of life. Like they were choosing every single day to go to the gym versus times where maybe they would have the opportunity to go out with friends, or if their workout plan is becoming very isolating and just cutting out the rest of life. Those are some potential red flags that I would have individuals consider. As a dietitian, I can't diagnose body dysmorphic disorder, but I can look for kind of like signs and symptoms that might indicate that is the situation. If I am identifying any of the things that I just mentioned, I will often recommend that they consider connecting with one of our therapists on campus just to make sure that they can have that right balance so their mental health is supported.
Yeah, and we also have some great resources on campus that can help students figure out if it's something that may be problematic, and if it is, just get help. Thank you so much for all this wonderful information and just dispelling some common myths. And I think it's just really important to get that information out here. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Before we wrap up, a quick reminder that all information shared in today's podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. Thank you for listening to another episode of Roadie Wellness. If you like what you heard today, tune in every Tuesday on all podcast platforms for more. If you want to stay up to date on events and healthcare tips, please follow us at URI Health Promotions on Instagram. And if you have any ideas for future podcast episodes or more social media content that you'd like to see, please feel free to DM us or email us. Until next time, take care and stay healthy.